30 years of experience in the IT industry. Vinay specializes in creating user manuals, specifications, and courseware. He's passionate about innovation in technical communication and shares his expertise through weekly blog and two podcasts. Vinay has yet another interesting topic to share with us, that is using AI to deflect support tickets using the help corpus. So Vinay will discuss with us Zenoti's groundbreaking approach of implementing generative AI bot on their support widget. This initiative has successfully deflected about 45% of his queries with an 80% customer satisfaction rate, resulting in cost savings for about $450,000 in just 6 months, which is truly amazing. So now over to you, Vinay. I will give this to you so that you can lead the crowd with your topic.
Thanks. Can you hear me and can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. You stole most of my thunder. Whatever I wanted to say, you've kind of like very nicely summarized it. I'll try and add some meat to that so that we can, understand what exactly we've been doing here at Zenoti. Very interesting session so far. And, most of the sessions or all of the sessions were from the perspective of the writers using generative AI and other AI tools to create content, right? This session is going to be a little different because basically what we are going to be looking at over here is how you create value for your company. So one of the things that most uh, is my slide moving forward? Just checking.
Yes.
Yeah, you're on the introduction slide, Vinay.
Okay, awesome. So one of the problems that most of us face as documenters, right, is when people ask us, show us value, right? How did documentation really add value to the product? And it's pretty difficult to maintain. For instance, I remember there was this one time, and this happened to be in my first job as a technical writer, where the client came in from the US. She had flown down from the US, and she was giving everybody a tough time. But then when she was introduced to me, she said, you're the only reason we are able to use this product, right? I mean, those of y'all who smoke or who have smoked in your lives, that first puff that you take, it gives you a fantastic high. I'm not telling y'all that y'all should smoke, but I'm just saying that I got that high in my very first job, and I think I've been chasing that high ever since then, right? Who am I? I'm Vinay. I head a really talented team of technical writers here at Zenoti, which is a SaaS solution for salons and spas. Okay, and one of the things that has been put on my plate, or one of the objectives I have, is uh, bringing value through documentation for the company. And one of the areas we identified was to reduce support tickets. So typically, a support ticket here at Zenoti costs us between $30 to $50, depending on the location. Okay, so that's each support question, right? And we get roughly about 6,000 support questions a week, right? So we're talking really big money here. Okay, so we did try different things, right? We tried to make the documentation more comprehensive. We tried online trainings. We set up, a learning management system which had videos that showed people how to use the product. We created QA bots, right? These are these question answer pair bots. Okay, and then we just found that you needed just too many to be able to make a dent in the content. We also tried digital adoption platforms such as WalkMe to do it, and it was helpful. But then, as the number of WalkMe's keep increasing or kept increasing, we found that it slowed down the responsiveness of our pages. So we had to kind of give up on that, right? Roughly around a year ago, when ChatGPT came out, I started looking at ChatGPT. I was very excited about the whole concept of being able to have a conversation with a bot, right? We in here Here at Zenoti, we use Intercom as our support tool. So when you reach out to support within the product, you're basically using Intercom there, right? So they announced that they were coming out with a GPT-based bot called Fin. right? And I was very excited about it. I, went up to a couple of people and said, "Hey, we should be trying this out. This could, be very useful." And most people were not very excited because at that point of time, GPTs were still seen as it's an interesting technology, but what are we going to do with it, right? I mean, it doesn't seem to make any sense. There's a lot of everybody's worried about hallucinations, all the regular stuff, right? So I reached out to the guys at Intercom and got them to get my entire help site ingested by the Fin bot, right? And then I reached out to somebody in my support team over here, and I sold them the whole idea of, okay, this is what we need to do. He found it interesting enough. So to cut a short story, I mean, long story short, right? What we did was we opened it out for a limited set of customers. Now, we opened this out to a limited set of customers, and we expected maybe 1%, 2%, maybe 5% deflection of tickets. Okay, that was what we expected. The next morning, we pull up the reports and it says 30%, right? It was shocking, but there was no way that we were expecting anything along those lines, right? So then we said, okay, let's wait a couple of days, maybe it'll settle down, right? So we waited 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, right? And it was still at 30% deflection of tickets, right? Uh, so, then this guy in support was all very excited and he said, "Hey, we need to get this in front of more customers." And I was like, okay, if we've got to 30%, we should be able to get to something better than this, right? So we went our own ways, like that scene in Diwar where Amitabh and Shachi walk away, right? So we both went our own ways, but we continued to work very closely because, it was only through that collaboration that we would get to wherever we eventually got, right? And today, what we do is my Fin ingests information from the help site. It ingests information from Confluence, which is where we put all our internal document. It also ingests custom content, okay, which is basically content that is focused on specific customers, right? We might have built a feature that is not available to all the customers, it's only available to a couple of them. So it also ingests that content, okay. And we have also now begun to ingest customer content, right? So when I say it ingests customer content, what it means is you could be working in one of the software or one of the companies that uses my software, and you could ask a question like, "Hey, what's the paternity leave policy in this company?" Right? And it would give you the policy that is based on your company. And the next question you could ask would be, "Hey, how do I move an appointment from Wednesday to Thursday?" Okay. And that would give you the answer from Zenoti. Right? So that's how beautiful this whole thing is. Right? And we found that the answers, because it is working on this limited set of information. Okay, some of the answers are really, really good. Okay, now if you take a look at this one, right? This is actually this article, the image you see on the right side of your screen, right? That is a screen capture from my article. And that is not the whole article. The article is about 10, 15 pages long, right? But when they asked a question, okay, the bot very nicely summarized it into about 6 or 7 steps. Okay, and then it also provided the link to my article. So if somebody wanted to go in deeper, okay, they could, right? This is another one where this is a 27-page article, if I'm right. And this article also, again, when the question was asked, it pulled out exactly the information that the user required. Okay, and then summarized it very nicely so that the user was able to understand this. I will come back to this example after some time because there's some other information that we need to talk about. Yes? Okay, somebody else. Okay. Yeah, so sorry.
Vinay, please unmute yourself.
Sir, you are muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So coming here, so this is a question that Finn couldn't find the answer to, right? But what Finn was able to do was it was able to suggest a bunch of links that the user could go to, okay, and then maybe get the answer. And guess what? Those links are perfect, right? I mean, if a human were to read those links, okay, they would be able to solve the problem that the user has asked on the left side there, right? So really effective way of being able to answer these questions, right? Here's a very specific one, right? They say that the collection on one particular day was this much, but when I went in and I looked at the report, it only shows me X amount, right? And again, Finn was able to answer that question, right? It was able to go in and say, hey, these are the reasons why you might not see a matching number between your sales and your collections, right? So much so, I mean, it's so interesting, right? These answers that many a time when I'm reviewing these answers, I go scurrying back to my help to ask, where did I write this? Right? I don't remember this team writing this piece of content, but it is there somewhere. It is there in some arcane corner somewhere, and Finn is able to actually get all this together and bring it onto one page. Right? There was this one question that somebody asked about why they were not able to see a particular column on an inventory report. Right? And Finn actually went in and said, hey, you know what? In Zenoti, there are 2 or 3 different types of inventory procedures that you can follow. Okay, you have selected this one. Okay, and because you selected this one, this report does not show you this particular column. Okay, now if you want to enable it, okay, you can do it on so and so screen, but you would need these permissions, right? It's amazing. I mean, 4, 5 different articles, the information from there brought together and given as one single answer to a question, right? And the numbers show it, right? This is only 2024 numbers. These are not the numbers from the beginning. So we did start somewhere halfway around 2023. I'm just showing you the numbers so far this year, right? And you can see how we've gone, like, our involvement, Finn's involvement rate has gone up from 76%, okay, all the way to about 95%, okay. Deflection, even more impressive, okay, 32% to about 48%, right? CSAT, very, very important, right? Today, we are over 80% in CSAT. Okay, human CSAT in our company is at 83%. So I'm just 2% away, okay, from matching the customer satisfaction that humans are giving, right? If you take a look at it, right, there's a number of conversations, the actual conversations based on the percentage that Finn participated in, and then the savings. In 2024, so far, till whatever date today is of June, we have saved the company close to $900,000 in support costs. Right, that's the value we are bringing to the table. That's the money we are putting on the table through just documentation. Right. Finn is, like I said, flexible enough. So we are now extending it, okay, where it will have the general Zenoti help, which is available to everybody. Okay, then we have custom Zenoti help, which is available to a limited set of customers. Zenoti internal help, okay, and of course, customer documentation. To this, okay, the future is, okay, and I'm kind of like going fast here so that we can make up on time. Okay, so the future is we are going to be able to add all support conversations to the forum that the corpus that Finn is looking at. We are going to be able to add all email conversations, okay, and we are going to be able to add all phone conversations. Now, once all this comes in, okay, it just kind of like is going to blow up and go way over, right? So what did we learn and how did we get to these numbers, right? I mean, if we started at 30% and then we are getting to 50%, we started at 40% somewhere and then we're getting to 80%, right? How did we get to that, right? So first of all, the initial 25 to 30% we got by doing nothing. It was just out of the box, right? But then, okay, to see the gains that we have been seeing, okay, we have had to learn a lot of things, right? The first thing to understand is your GPTs are not very smart. Okay, now let me explain that. Let's say you have a document or an article that's written on how to turn on a feature, right? So you would say something like, go to this particular page, go to this setting, turn it on, right? Done. And most humans would intuit that, if I want to turn off that feature, I just have to go there and, turn it off, right? But the bot doesn't do that. Right. So if somebody were to ask the bot, how do I turn on this feature? It will give the right answer. But if you were to ask the bot the same question in reverse, like how do I turn off this feature? The bot will tell you, hey, you know what? I don't know, but you might want to go and read this article. That's typically what happens. So what we found is we are having to write a lot more complete documentation. So if we've written how to turn on the article, we've also got to add a sentence in there that says how to turn off the article, right? Of course, GPTs are really smart, so it is also forcing us to start reusing a lot of content. So if we've used content somewhere, right, there's no need to rewrite it in another article because we know that GPT is going to combine these two articles and give the answer anyways, right? So a lot of repeating content across modules. Okay, we are kind of like reducing on that because the GPT is smart enough to figure out what connects to what, right? Um, a very major learning we had is that not all content is equal, right? So your title and your body is very important. Okay, that is the highest in the hierarchy as far as GPT is concerned. Okay, and then it keeps going lower, right? Procedures, numbered lists, blah blah blah. And what comes at the bottom of the table, interestingly, okay, is tables, right? So as especially technical writers who started roughly around the time when I started technical writing, which is very long ago, and I'm not going to tell you the date, but we were told to write content in tables as much as possible, right? Because it was much better to present it on page, right, or even on the screen, right? But the GPTs don't read tables very well, so any content that we have in tables usually gets lost, even if it's a direct instruction, right? It gets lost. So one of the things we are doing is we are converting a lot of our tabular content into bulleted lists, right? Another learning is that context is important, right? So what we found is instead of having to write multiple use case scenarios, if there like for let me put this with an example, right? If in Zenoti you wanted to know how much sales you made, how much commission you have to pay your front desk staff, and how many memberships you sold, let's say, right? The answer to all these three questions is the same one. You have to go to the sales report, right? So instead of writing three different articles for this, okay, all we do now, okay, is after in that article, we give it context. So we say, hey, using this report, you can get all this information. So the next time somebody asks, how do I do this? And it's one of those things in that article, one of the scenarios in that article, it will pull this article out, right? So we are able to give it a lot more context. Okay, and as we give it context, okay, the answers it is returning are a lot better also, right? I'll give you another example. So we have one, also if you wanted to kind of like, let's say, send out an email blast, right, about some promotion, right? So you would create that in a particular specific place in our software, right? Now, let us say you decide that, hey, I don't want to send it out to everybody. I only want to send it out to the people who came to my center or to my salon in the last 2 weeks, right? Now, creating that filter of users, right? That happens somewhere else, right? And the various scenarios that people keep asking, most probably the answer is, hey, you got to go and create a target segment first, then you got to come and create this email blast, right? And Finn wasn't able to answer because people use target segments for multiple reasons, right? In very many different ways. So what we are doing now is we're looking through the support conversations. That's something that our team does very seriously over here. We go through the support conversations, okay, and we are going in and we are enriching the content based on how the users are using our product, not based on what we think our product is going to be used, how it's going to be used, right? Uh, Synonyms, yeah, very interesting. In the chat, in the world before ChatGPT, right? The way people got to our content, okay, was basically they would, what would you say? They would use a search bar, right? Now, in search, okay, you could have a synonym dictionary, okay, and you could say, okay, these words are synonyms, and it pretty much worked well, okay. But you can't do that in the GI world because if you teach the GPT that these two words are synonyms, you really don't know where else it is going to make this substitution, right? To give you an example again from my world, right? If you go to a salon, get a haircut, and part of the haircut also means that they're going to wash your hair and shampoo it. Okay, that shampoo that they use, okay, it's not called a consumable in their inventory system. It's called a professional, right? So if I go and tell them, hey, mark this as a uh, consumable, they wouldn't understand it. We have to go and tell them, hey, you've got to mark this as a professional. Okay. Now, if you were to go and tell ChatGPT that the word professional and the word consumable are synonyms, okay, you can imagine the mess that is going to happen. So basically, what we are having to do is add the synonyms within the content itself. So it knows that it is a synonym within this particular context, right? Not because it is there in some synonym dictionary somewhere. Okay. And finally, it is all down to ingestion. Ingestion costs. Okay. But then any change you make is only going to be available to your customer after the ingestion happens from your content into the GPT, right? So that the cadence of ingestion that you're going to be doing, okay, is very important to ensure that it is successful. And why that is the reason, or why that is so important is the more wrong answers people get, the less they start trusting the GPT. So it's very important that at least initially you set up a very high cadence of ingestion so that any change you make to your content is almost all immediately available to your customer, right? Yeah, we could go into this. Do we have time, Shakala, or do you want me to wrap up?
Sure, you do have time.
We have time, right?
Oh,
Okay.
5 minutes.
So, thanks. Okay. So, is it a one-trick pony, right? Is this the only thing that it can do? But no, we've been using GPT in different ways. Okay. And in fact, from the time I made this slide to now, we've also progressed more ahead in that area. But one of the things we do is we use it for reviews. And how we use it for reviews is we take the content that is generated, we feed it into the GPT, okay, and then we ask the GPT what questions can this content answer, right? And it'll give me a bunch of say 4 or 5 questions. It'll say, yeah, this article can answer these 4 or 5 questions. Then what I do is I take the first question and I ask that question to the GPT, right? And then I look at the answer, right? And if the answer is complete, good. If the answer is not complete, I know what information I need to add to my article so that the GPT is answering that question correctly, right? So we are using it for reviews. We are also, you can also, a long drawn thing, right? I mean, and this is one thing, just as an aside, right? Uh, GAIs and GPTs are not there yet, right? We still don't have this one complete solution that does everything for us, right? So you're going to have to kind of like pick and choose. Okay, this one does this well, this one does something else well, and so on and so forth, right? So one of the things we do also is the most important aspects of my style guide, I first feed it in to the GPT, and then I feed in the article, and I say, okay, how in what aspects has this or does this article not adhere to the style guide that I gave you first, right? So it is there. It's a jugaad kind of situation. Okay, but yeah, that is how we use it. Okay, we are also moving or to be successful in this world. Okay, we should also begin to move upstream, right? The way I see it, eventually, okay, we are nobody's going to ask us to really write procedure documents anymore, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how you do it. Click here, print there, but that button, this button. Those days are going to pretty quickly go away, right? We've got to kind of like start looking at how we write less content. Okay, but at the same time, okay, we've got to start getting used to being part of the development process much earlier, so that we are putting in the right words on the UI screen. Okay, we are also making sure that the instructions are given properly on the UI screen, because the future is going to be whichever product is easier to use and does everything well. Right, those are the products that are going to do well. Nobody wants to be talking to support. Nobody wants to be reading a help article. Right, we did have somebody present about how we are, where we fit in this new world, right? And we are going to be fitting in, okay, much earlier, because let's be honest, right? The PMs and the devs and the QA, most of them don't, language is not their strength, right? They wouldn't know the difference between what is a shower versus what is taking a bath, right? They wouldn't know the difference between, deleting something versus, let's say, clearing it out or clearing something, right? They wouldn't know it. They would just use terms. I mean, there are a bunch of terms in my product itself over here, okay, where sometimes I look at it and I'm like, what were you thinking when you were doing that, right? So, as writers, okay, our really our single skill set, okay, is that we understand language and we understand the nuance of language. And that is very important and that cannot be replaced. right? So we should be looking at getting involved with the product way earlier, okay? And again, the GPTs come in handy there because you are able to then ask questions like, okay, what fields, these are the fields I have on a page that is called this, right? Is it right? Is it wrong? Right? GPT is a fantastic reviewer. Okay, it does. Sorry. Okay, it reviews your content very well. Okay, and it gives you very honest feedback. Right. So you should be looking at moving upstream in the product life cycle. Okay, because that's where you'll be able to add most value. Right. So yeah, to kind of like wind down. Right. We have to demonstrate value. Okay. I don't believe, and I am contradicting one of the earlier speakers here. I don't believe that developers are, I mean, documenters are ever going to become developers. Okay, but yeah, a developer who understands how they are going to use these tools, okay, could become a documenter, right? So the real value we bring to the table is our language, okay, and using that language is where we can demonstrate value. Be that in making sure that the UI text is good, or be that in creating documentation that is then fed to a generative AI, which then reduces support tickets, right? And it's going to be constant improvement, right? Your articles, as they stand today, are not going to be very GAI friendly. Okay, you're going to have to figure it out for yourselves. The best place I can advise you all to go and do that is your support tickets. Go ahead, look, get very involved in all the support tickets. Read the support tickets, right? Over here, I have one person in my team whose only job is to, I mean, like she's supposed to spend half a day just looking through the support tickets that we got in yesterday. Right? That's her only job, right? And that is how we've been able to kind of like make the progress that we have. Okay, and we basically leverage the efficiencies that GIA brings us. Okay, and write for the bot. We are no longer writing for humans. We are writing for the bot. The bot will then take our content, okay, and present it to the humans. Right. So it's a whole new world out there. Right. Yeah, you can connect with me anytime. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can reach out there. Chris said, I do two podcasts. One is on documentation.
Audio, video on.
Hello?
Sorry,
Does somebody
that
want
was
to say?
me. No, I'm
Hello,
sorry.
sorry. Yeah, so I do two podcasts. One of them is on documentation, where I am in conversation with people who are from the documentation industry. The other one is more conversations with, where I speak to women about their experiences in life and, generally the experiences. My blog is called Pavement Views. You can also get it on LinkedIn, right? So, yeah, that's about me. If you have any questions, I can take them now.
Yeah. So thank you, Vinay, for highlighting the capabilities of Zenoti's brainchild. We have a couple of questions that we would like to discuss today. So we have one from Syed. He says, LLM models tend to hallucinate, thereby reducing the trust factor. Have you faced this issue? How have you overcome it?
So we didn't really face it because our GPT uh, does not look at anything other than our knowledge corpus, right? So it is only trained on this corpus, and when it doesn't get the right answer, okay, it just says, I don't have an answer. So it can only answer from within the corpus that we have fed it. If the question is from outside it, it says, I don't have the answer.
Thank you. Deepa asks, can you detail the security measures Fin take to protect user data stored within its database? Specifically, how
We
does
don't.
Fin ensure responsible data retention practices? Additionally, does Fin comply with relevant data privacy regulations?
Okay, awesome. First of all, we don't give any private data to Fin, right? The only thing that Fin gets, okay, is the help site, right? And of course, the Confluence site, which is again, it's just help documents. Okay, it gets access to the customer's help documents, but it does not get access to what would you say? To customer data per se. Yes, there is one way in which it might get access to that customer data, and that is when if somebody were to ask a question with a specific customer data in that question, right? But that is again protected by our agreement with Intercom, because Intercom being our support tool also, we already have an agreement with Intercom with regard to the security of our data. And so which means that that data does not flow out of Intercom at all. So yeah, that's basically, so our security is covered by our agreement with Intercom. I hope I answered all the questions. I know that there were 3 or 4 related questions.
And we have one more one. How did you collect customers ask queries? Mine is very technical domain, and end users are very technical people. How did you modify content for it to make sense to bot? This came from Sonal Kumar.
Yeah, so unlike most of you, I have a very interesting audience that I write for, right? My audience are people who run and work at salons and spas. So the person who runs a salon and spa might be educated, okay, but most of the people, like let's say the hairstylist or the therapist or the masseuse, right? These are all people who most probably have just about finished school and most probably haven't gone to college, right? So it is the software is pretty much aimed at those kind of people. So my content has to be by its nature, my content has to be pretty simple. uh, uh, if I did get it, there was one question about how do you figure out what the customers are asking, right? And for that, my answer is, we are reading customer conversations, like whatever conversations happened yesterday, right? We are doing it today. We are reading it today.
So hope that raised awareness to all those who've asked questions. Do we have any other questions?
That would be clear. If they manage to escape from
Thank
this,
you, Christian. Thank you,
Thank you.
Vinay, for such an amazing presentation. You are a very great and engaging orator. So, thank you for all those insights that you have given all of us. I'm pretty sure that uh, it will help a lot of people who are attending this conference and people